Today's episode is brought to you by America's Best Unlimited Network. Don't miss a show with unlimited data from T-Mobile.
Welcome to Game of Thrones Weekend Edition. I am Roth Cornett, joined by my esteemed panel of friends, Michelle Boyd.
Hello, everyone.
Spencer Gilbert.
Hi there.
You were supposed to have a quip ready.
Who's in the fourth seat?
My coffee.
We're actually going to have a surprise guest. You'll have to make it through the entire video to find out which guest. There is no surprise guest. Let's just reveal that right now. But what we are going to talk about is fan theories.
Yeah.
You know what there's a lot of in the Game of Thrones world? Fan theories.
Boobs.
Not anymore.
Not so much anymore,
What happened?
actually.
Someone should chart that.
Yeah, charting the boobs.
Boobs over time.
I'm
Let's
sure
get
it's
Dan on
happened.
that.
We did get Missandei this season.
We did get
Oh,
Missandei this
yeah,
season.
yeah.
Hey, remember
There's
her?
not as many boobs. There's not as much sex position. They've moved away from that a little bit
Towards dragons.
towards dragons and occasionally direwolves, but not that
enough.
often. not
Never
that often.
enough dire wolves.
So there's like the big basic fan theories, right? About, and just heads up, if you haven't read the books, we're going to be talking about book things. So you might want to check out now, or if you don't care, just stay with us. We're
But
not going to
spoilers.
spoil or anything.
But spoilers.
No, but spoilers. But really, spoilers.
Spoilers from the books. So we are going to talk about stuff from the books, but these are fan theories. They're sort of like the larger ones that everybody knows about. Azor Ahai is either Jon or Dany, or Jon and Dany. The dragon has 3 heads. It's probably Jon and Dany and Tyrion, or maybe not. after
Those
this
are
last
the
episode.
boring fan theories.
Yeah, we're going to get deep.
We're going to get weird.
We're gonna get
Deep and weird.
tinfoil.
We're going to go over some of the most popular current tinfoil hat theories and what we think of them, starting with...
Time traveling fetuses. Yay!
I hope that's one of the spin-offs.
I want it to be so bad. So this one is the fan theory that XY Seth on Reddit brought up, and he is brilliant. You have to admire the craziness of this theory, but also kind of just the detail therein. This one is the theory that Tyrion is actually the baby of Dany and Drogo.
What?
Yeah, that's a thing.
Not Drogon. Drogon.
Not Drogon, although that would be awesome. He's actually not just half Targaryen, which we'll get into later, but he's half dragon itself. No, this is a theory that kind of conflates the myth of Thebes and Oedipus, along with some crazy ass time travel with Mirri Maz Duur. So the idea is basically that King's Landing with its 7 gates is symbolic of Thebes with its 7 gates, and also that Tyrion is actually Oedipus. There's a lot of parallels between Tyrion and Oedipus. Both of them had abnormal gaits. You know, Tyrion, because he's a dwarf, waddles around. Sorry, that is directly from the books. That is not an insult. Let's see, both of them were disowned by their fathers. Then both of them end up killing their fathers, which, if you follow the Oedipal theory along, means that Tyrion eventually has to sleep with his mother, which, wait, Joanna's dead, so how does that happen? Well, it happens if Tyrion is actually the baby of Dany and Drogo. And that Mirri Maz Duur, the priest all the way from back in season 1, actually transported Dany's unborn child back into Joanna Lannister's womb and transported Joanna Lannister's dead unborn fetus into Dany.
Just stop. No.
And that is actually what Dany delivered. So, we're going to go into similarities. So, similarities between Tyrion and Rhaego. Rhaego, monstrous, twisted, scaled like a lizard, stub of a tail, and bat wings. Tyrion has been described... Bat wings. Tyrion has been described as a twisted little monkey demon, said to have a curly pig's tail. He is associated with dragons. That accounts for the scales, sure.
This is so dumb.
Can we just go into, first of all, that I don't believe this at all, but I think it's awesome. Then you also have the Quaithe prophecy. She's the chick who appeared over in Essos with the mask over her face, and she said, to go north you must go south, to go east, or to go west you must go east, to go forward you must go back in time. So it's basically that in order for Dany's husband to come back and for Dany to have other children, Tyrion has to go back in time, and that's the time travel craziness that is going to have Drogo eventually come back and mean that Tyrion is destined to shag Dany, his mother.
I cannot make this gesture hard enough.
You are so welcome.
That is so...
I think there's help for that.
You are so welcome. You are welcome.
I mean, that redefines stretch. The Oedipus similarities and the 7 gates of Thebes and the the gods of the 7.
Of King's Landing, the number 7 having such a big, like, symbolic significance. 7 gods, 7 gates,
Just like
7 everything.
No. I mean, I don't know what else to say except no, that's dumb and terrible.
But awesome.
What would the narrative purpose of it be?
More just to have kind of like a crazy idea of where Tyrion's story arc is going, that him and Dany getting together is going to be an Oedipal thing as opposed to just kind of coming together naturally on its own. Spencer could not be facepalming more right now if he tried.
So she was promised that her son would be the stallion that mounts the world, that in other words, basically Azor Ahai, potentially, that her son would be the one, yes?
Yeah, well, that Azor Ahai is not, I mean, yes, the prince that was promised is essentially Azor Ahai reborn. So
Yes.
that the stallion that mounts the world could also be the prince that
Another
was
name for it.
promised.
No,
Yeah,
just-
could be
just-
another
hold
name.
on, hold on.
So wait,
Yeah.
hang on.
Okay,
hang on,
you hang. I'll hang on. I'll hang on. I'm hanging on.
Hang on.
Proceed.
All I'm saying is that I'm not saying I'm buying into this, but I'm saying a narrative purpose for it would be that to help fulfill the prophecy that the 3 of them in combination are the reborn Azor Ahai in combination, so that the prophecy is a little wonky.
A little? Oh, I'm fully admitting the crazy on this one.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. It's more that Tyrion is actually the stallion that mounts the world,
Yes.
and therefore is also going to be one of the 3 heads of the dragon,
Right.
and will ride a dragon, and and kind of fulfill that whole.
Does he
that
know
whole
he's a
bit.
time traveling fetus?
I mean,
Or
would
has
you?
he forgotten?
Well, I don't know, Spencer. Do you?
I guess I don't. All right. Okay, it could be real. Because I have no awareness of whether my fetus traveled back through time or not.
Exactly.
I'm not buying this one totally.
I don't think so either.
But I'm saying the only narrative purpose at all would be to help give a reason.
To needlessly complicate this
give
already
a
complicated
reason
story.
that Tyrion would somehow be a part of this prophecy, although after the events of this last episode.
I think you're looking for a purpose in a mad, mad world, and it's just don't even try.
Story of my life, woman.
Just enjoy
Story
the
of my
ride.
life is looking for a purpose in this mad, mad world. Somebody, for the love of God, give me a reason.
Enjoy the Joanna Lannister's womb going at 88 miles per hour storyline. Okay,
That'd be great.
That's it.
All right, give us a more plausible one, Ruff.
Well, Varys is a merman.
Well, that's obvious. We knew that one.
mean, that
He's a
one-
merman.
The merman.
Merman, if you please. So here's the evidence for merlings being a thing at all. Brienne hears about squishers, man-eating fish creatures that walk on 2 legs.
That's not a mermaid.
That's not. That's a
2 legs.
2 legs.
Unless
well,
it's one of those creepy
merling.
mermaid from the waist
Merling.
up.
It's a merling.
Oh, okay.
Merling. Because if I say it that way,
It makes more sense.
it makes more sense.
Why are we doing this sober, you guys? I don't understand.
Speak for yourself.
Billy, where's the whiskey? Come on.
I mean, for every theory.
So, in a world of ice and fire,
Where's water at?
Maester Theron posits that the existence of a race of creatures called the Deep Ones, who are half sired by creatures of the salt seas and upon human women, and the Deep Ones are responsible for building both the Seastone Chair and the Iron Islands and the base of Hightower in Old Town. Which are made all out of the same oily blackstone, right? That's one piece of evidence. They may also have built the city of Ashai, which, okay,
There's one
similarly
now.
constructed.
See, he only has one
and the
flipper.
theory is that the Squishers and the Deep Ones are all one and the same, and that Varys is one of them. There's other pieces of evidence: the statue of a Merling king in the House of Black and White. The Ironborn are said to have received the Driftwood throne from the Merling king. The sigil of the House of Manderley is a mermaid. Evidence for Varys being a merman. Arya sees Varys and Ilario ascend from a well. There's a conversation between Tyrion and Varys in season 2 where Tyrion threatens to throw him into the sea and he says, ha ha ha. You might be surprised by the results. The big fish eat the little fish, and I keep paddling along. He's said to have a slimy smile. The eunuch story is just a cover. That's why we're not allowed to see his underthings. There are no things.
Because it's just scales.
Because it's just scales.
Yeah, Ross just didn't find like a lack of something when she put her hand between his legs. Like, I don't know, there was a vestigial fishtail happening.
Little fishtail business happening. Littlefinger hired a boat called the Merling King and claims to have complete control over Varys. There's no bed in his bedroom. Dun, 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 dun.
That's
so
weird.
why would he do this?
Is there a pool?
Okay, so there is a pool for him to sleep in comfortably.
Yeah.
So the idea is that Littlefinger is working with the Merlings so that Tyrion's goal is
Varys'
pardon me. Varys
is Tyrion a Merling too?
Tyrion is also a Merling, and that's where the twist comes in. So Varys' goal is to melt the wall and flood the world so that he can rule it.
He can splash and play freely.
So he can splash and play freely and ruling. And Littlefinger is working with the Merlings so that he can rule also from the Eyrie.
Because
it'll be the last. It'll be like a prequel to Waterworld.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's all one universe, you guys.
Chaos is both a watery ladder and a pit.
Yeah, you can always swim up.
Yeah.
Wow.
A flooded pit is chaos.
I don't want to believe that. I don't believe it. But if Varys releases a big thing of eggs in the last episode, then you will have the last laugh.
Did I miss anything, Michelle? Where do you stand on
I think you got all the evidence that could possibly be gleaned from 5 words in the books.
Does this please the court? Does this please the court?
I think you can't possibly do a crazy tinfoil thing without Varys as a merman. I mean, there's just no way. You can't overlook that one.
Okay, so here's the thing. I don't buy this one at all.
No shit.
But at least there would be a purpose to it, you know, which is that he's like, ha ha, my goal all along has been to swim free. But then why wouldn't he just go swim in the ocean? Like, why does he need to flood the world?
This is just, he wants to.
But if
the oceans don't seem to be.
Why am I defending this?
There doesn't seem to be any lack of ocean in Game of Thrones.
No.
Or on Earth.
In general terms. Plus, if he flooded the wall, it would not be enough water to cover all of Westeros.
No, just make it damp for a while.
Right.
Well, no, that's not technically Earth. Or is it? In the future. Game of Thrones is actually our future. There's another theory.
Oh, yeah.
The other piece of it that's confusing to me is like if they actually are potentially man-eating merlings that also need to impregnate women, why would they want to kill everybody? All of the humans that they need to sustain themselves.
Well, they clearly are going to keep all the women prisoner up at the Eyrie.
But then why would they be building these thrones for men if they wanted to just drown them?
That's a great question, Ron.
I have questions about the theory, that's all I'm saying.
Sit back, enjoy the ride.
Spencer?
Yeah, okay, so we're crawling out from the completely implausible to the maybe perhaps slightly but still probably implausible theories. And this one is that Missandei is a faceless man or woman.
Woo! I like this one.
Very well could be. I mean, in the book, she's only 10 years old, which the show has increased the ages of everybody. But she's like this young girl who has a frightening amount of knowledge. She knows 19 languages. She's placed herself very close to kings and queens and influential people. She's always, in the book at least, she's referring to herself as this one a lot. You know, and the faceless men have that weird third-person way of referring to themselves. She knows some creepy stuff, like when Quentin's burned in the dragon fire, and she knows that his skinless face is smiling. She has these weird, just tics where you're thinking that maybe she knows more than she's letting on. And she's placed herself right next to Daenerys Targaryen. So I would be shocked, but it would not be completely implausible that she's a faceless man keeping tabs on someone who's close to dragons.
In order to...
Well, okay, so the faceless men seem to have their fingers in a little bit of everything, and you'd think that they would be curious and fascinated by someone who controls powerful magic like Daenerys.
Are they like the Illuminati of this
Yeah,
world, where they're
exactly.
secretly infiltrated everywhere?
It is a possibility. Jaqen, and we'll get to that theory
I'm
later.
saying that as if the Illuminati is a fact.
Well,
I know.
yeah, I mean,
I
hello.
mean, clearly.
And Roth, did you not get the warning before we started this podcast? Shush. It's more just kind of an interesting, weird thing with Missandei. Like you said, I mean, she knows so many languages at such a young age. She also says that she remembers brothers of hers both before and after their training. And the Unsullied training takes 9 years. And if she's only 10 years old, how does she remember something from when she was 1 versus after they were fully trained and fully unsullied after that fact? We've seen evidence that the Faceless Men live longer. The waif, when we meet her in the books, she's actually 36.
In her 30s, yeah.
She's actually 36 and looks like a 12-year-old. So there's precedent for that.
Missandei, she snuck up on people that
She snuck up
don't
on Sir
usually get
Barristan.
snuck up on, who's a Kingsguard who's like always on alert. So I'm just saying, it wouldn't surprise me, even if she's not a full-fledged Faceless Man, that she is an agent of some higher power, because she really is just sliding under everybody's radar at this point.
Right.
Alright.
And if you're going, and I mean, if you're, Roth, you're always talking about what's the narrative purpose. Well, what better place for a Faceless Man to be than seated at the right hand, well, I guess left hand of Tyrion's there, but left hand of the Queen.
A translator, hearing both sides of every story.
Exactly. And
But then
being
you
able
would-
to influence all these situations.
But then wouldn't you assume, are things being mistranslated?
Could be.
It is possible.
It is possible.
It
But
is
then
known.
Wouldn't their Faceless Men be sort of everywhere? That's important.
Sure.
I don't know,
Wouldn't
they aren't. I
Yeah.
mean, Faceless Men, because they're for hire, correct? She could be working for the Iron Bank, or she could be contracted by anybody.
Okay, now I like it.
Yeah.
I like the idea that
but-
the Iron Bank has got their little
Claws
faceless
and everything.
fingers.
And by the way, like they keep talking about all these Faceless Men. Are most of them just out on assignment all the time? Because we don't really meet that many.
Yeah, I guess
and
that
that's
place-
a giant
the
house.
school was empty, yeah.
Right? So where are all of these guys? Presumably out in the world doing their thing.
I just like the idea that she's eventually going to take Arya's bag away from her.
Flip it, oh, what do you got? Oh, you got that face? Oh, cool.
And they just sort of bond
Switch.
over it.
Yeah.
All right, I don't hate that one.
Yeah, they were rising into
We're
the
rising.
somewhat plausible.
What do you
I
got?
like it. I have not so much necessarily plausible, but more just I like to think of it as a way to kind of explain something that was never fully addressed in the books or in
it
the
ties
show.
in a little bit because
does.
who would be a faceless person that they had at King's Landing?
King's Landing, Syrio Forel. The theory is that Jaqen Hagar is actually Syrio Forel. So when we meet Syrio Forel when he comes into King's Landing, that was actually Jaqen basically wearing Syrio's face. Little bits of quote unquote evidence for it. Like we never actually see Syrio die. The Hound has a really nice moment where he's like, there's no way the first sword of Bravos gets beaten by Merman Trant, wooden sword or no. So it would make sense that Syrio actually did survive this. When Cersei talks about what happened when Merman Trant went to go get Arya, she says the dancing master interfered, never actually said he was killed. Both of them do say just so. There is a little bit of a language similarity between. The only real and then there's also the question of how did a man like Jaqen Hagar let himself get captured in the first place? When Arya first meets him, he's with Rorge and Biter in a cart, and this faceless man, you have to think, doesn't let anything happen that he didn't mean to happen. So there's a possibility that he was there to oversee Arya's training in King's Landing, and then after Syrio died, let himself be captured so that then he could present himself to Arya with the face of Jaqen Hagar. Now, granted, Jaqen's face is probably not his real face either, but the idea is that it's that faceless man the entire time. And one presumes that Syrio was actually a real person once upon a time. Like, it's not just a made-up thing, because Ned does talk about him being the first sword of Bravos and being this legendary sword master, that he had been first sword for 9 years. So presumably Jaqen wasn't Syrio this entire time, but probably took it over when he heard that Ned Stark was going to hire him for his little girl.
That's interesting.
I don't mind that one because now that we've said that they're infiltrating every seat of power, I like it.
Well,
like
yeah,
it.
but then I guess the only hang up for me is like, why had they singled out Arya from birth. Like, we need to look over her since she was, even before she was a little girl. Like, why would they go through so much trouble just to track Arya?
Bran whispered in his ear.
Yeah, right.
Which we will get to in a minute. But if Bran's doing some whispering in his ear, and they know that they need Arya, because Arya's got to get the dagger that will eventually assassinate the Night King.
Okay. Mm-hmm. They have to see that to its conclusion.
They have to see that too, and they have to make sure that she gets all of the available training in order to do it, and gets tested and tested and tested, and so that, like a pot in the fire, she strengthens. Isn't that what happens? Like,
is that how it happens in a pot?
Put clay in a kiln.
I don't know if you don't know about cooking or blacksmithing. What are you going for
frankly,
here?
either. Okay. Yeah. But isn't it that you put clay in a kiln, and it's like extreme heat, and it hardens?
Until you
Got
shatter
it.
it on the floor.
Until you shatter it, and just don't follow it all the way through. Follow it through to the point that it gets tougher, and then let it go.
You mix those metaphors, bro. You mix them hard.
You mix them like Valyrian steel.
Yeah.
Cooking with my metaphors. So Bran Stark.
Is this a new fan theory?
Are we going new? Next.
New one.
Next.
Bran Stark is Night King. Okay, this comes
like
from
this
a
theory.
Reddit theory from Turmoil26.
Okay.
Welcome, Turmoil, if you're watching this. I gotta say, I want to meet you, man, because this is some interesting sleuthing. At first, I thought this was kind of BS, but I kind of like where he's going with this. The idea is this, is that Bran is trying to help, but unable to do so. So he keeps warging back in time to try and fix events, but actually time is a flat circle, or the ink is already dry, and he's only solidifying events that have already happened. So he goes back. We know that he impacted the past with Hodor. We know that when you just look like you have something to say.
Nope, like, not at all.
Hodor.
Yes.
I'm into this theory. I love this theory because
yes.
it encompasses several other Bran theories.
Bran theories, right.
So I like this one.
There's another, I remember when that happened with Hodor, we all thought, oh, wow, what if, by all of us, it was like me and some other insane people. What if Bran also went back and was present at the time when the Mad King was saying burn them all, and that Bran was actually the one saying burn them all, burn them all, burn them all, but he was talking about the White Walkers, and it just sort of drove the Mad King mad. So then he basically kicked off everything that ultimately led to the rebellion, to everything that we have seen today. But what if he just kept going, okay, all right, I know I can get this right. I'm going to go all the way back to the creation of the Night King and to the man that I feel like it makes sense is not a Stark, but maybe a Stark ancestor by blood.
Sure.
Go back, warg into him, and communicate with the children of the forest and reason with them. But because everything that is already written, he just gets stuck, which he's been warned about in the past, and he's stuck in the Night King, and that because of the combination of Bran's magic and the magic of the children of the forest, when they make the Night King, that he basically either goes mad. So one side of the coin is that he then goes crazy, and he's plotting to take down the world after that because the combination of the magic is too much. You've talked about the fact that the Night King probably is green sight. That would be coming from Bran. The fact that when he saw him, the Night King saw him back and he touched him. He actually interacted with him. It could be that he was seeing himself, and that's what started to break the magic. But then the third option, and this is one that I am presenting now, is that he didn't go mad. But then because he really has seen all of time unfold and he has seen the folly of man over and over and over and the wheel, that he is now actually trying to set things in motion to truly break that wheel, to truly destroy the world as it is currently set up, to the point that a better world can rise. That basically he and Daenerys are on the same page in a sense. And what he wants is to break the pattern, to create something new, to finally fulfill what he's always wanted to do and help. Just help.
Ice and Fire would be about Dany and the Night's King, not Dany and Jon.
Potentially, and then the sad, tragic part of it is that Jon or Arya, whoever, one of his relatives would actually just then have to kill him. And he knows that.
That's interesting. I think that there's some things for and against it. I think for it, just like from a meta perspective, is like the Night's King doesn't seem like a George R.R. Martin character in that he is just like pure chaotic evil, but like not in the fun way like Joffrey or Ramsay Bolton is. Like he's like a fantasy trope. I mean, he looks really cool, but the fact that they would then ground him and be like, oh, this is actually Bran, like I can see that being revealed eventually. So we care about him, because we usually get to care about both sides of a fight in Game of Thrones. So I think they might be holding back some piece of information about him that would get us to care about who the Night's King is.
I do. I agree. I like that idea a lot. The idea that Bran keeps trying to fix things and goes back, and another point where he tries to fix it and makes sure that he is born is instilling that there must always be a Stark in Winterfell, possibly being Bran the Builder, the one who's responsible for building the wall in the first place, and also Winterfell, before he goes back into presumably the body of the Night King. And I like the idea more that he just loses himself. That by the time we see him, the Night King, in the show, it's no longer recognizably Bran in there, but enough that he still recognizes himself and knows that he has to take him on, which is why he would like grab the arm and kind of make that whole thing happen. But I do like it. It would add that bit of bittersweetness to the ending that George has always described if at the end, when Jon is killing the Night King, let's go with that possibility, he's actually killing his brother.
And he also he's already losing himself, though. He's kind of like we've seen in the episodes that he's been in this season, he's divorced from having an identity as Bran Stark anymore. He's now something else and something other. So if he really did, he's already there, and then plus he's lived all these thousands of years. I mean, even you saw him when he was, I hope you've seen the last episode because I'm about to say a thing. But basically when he killed the dragon, it was just cool as a cucumber. Like, he's so above it all. You know, he's so above any of these worries of men. He's like, okay, I know what comes next because I'm going to do, you know what I mean?
They were prepared.
Right. Now, against that theory, I just think that most specifically him making the Mad King mad, that just doesn't click for me, because there had to be such a crazy coincidence of events for Hodor to happen. Like, Hodor had to be like holding a door, and then Mira Reed needed to yell at him to hold the door while Bran was also like training, and he didn't want to break out of his training because he wanted to sit and experience this past memory. It just seemed like a once-in-a-lifetime thing. So for that to keep happening where, like, people shout conveniently appropriate things into his ear.
But that's a circular argument, because the whole reason it did happen was because it happened. You know, like, the whole reason that Hodor became who he was because of this series of events that just happens. And things like that happen every day and all the time, both in real life and Game of Thrones. You don't know what's going to be significant. And that was the whole thing of why no one really knew what to make of Hodor's Hodoring, because there's no way you can fathom ahead of time what events are going to be the significant ones that would go back and then cause that, which is exactly why it might explain why Bran would go back and try to fix things, not really realizing that the ink is already dry and there's no way that you can change that. And he would be the one to say, burn them all with the Mad King, and so on and so forth.
I think I like the idea that he actually does have an end game where he's still trying to be ultimately helpful, more than the idea that he just got so lost that now he's like, the world is better with undeadness. It's just better that way.
Or like, not my problem.
You know, it works
Hashtag
for me
not my Westeros.
because I'm definitely the king of all that stuff. And so, like, I'm going to go for. To me, it's more interesting if he is playing a longer game than that, given the sense of timelessness that he has, that he's like, these particular lives are meaningless on the spectrum of all of time. You know, we don't think they are. And then that raises some interesting questions about the character and their motivations that I would rather explore than, to your point, just to have kind of a guy that's like, isn't evil fun? Let's kill stuff.
Respect.
Yeah.
All right.
But I like it as an
plausible
idea, just overall.
All right.
I don't think we've here's a real question. Do you think we've seen the last of Bran's time traveling?
Absolutely not.
No way.
Okay.
No, there's way more exposition
Then
in that kid's future.
Then that means
and our
there's got to
past.
be some sort of consequences and something to arise from those events. So it's just the question of what.
What could it be?
Yep.
Could he perhaps witness this next fan theory? That Tyrion, you know this one, you love it, is Tyrion a Targaryen?
Woo!
King Aerys was all about his mom, Joanna Lannister. He says some saucy things about her breastises during a certain tourney. And right afterwards, Tywin resigns as the Hand, but people are wondering, could there have been more to that night, more that transpired? Could he have sired Tyrion Lannister, who then killed Joanna during childbirth, causing Tywin to say things like, "You're not my son"? Did he mean that literally? And would that mean that Tyrion, who shares a lot of Targaryen traits of like having almost white hair, green eyes, he's obviously cool with the dragons, as we found out. Could this be pushing towards Tyrion being related to Dany and Jon?
Possibly.
Yeah.
And again, I definitely see all the evidence for it. It is there.
He's got the 2 color eyes.
He has the 2 colors. So Tyrion has, in the book, Tyrion has a green and a black eye.
He's way uglier in the book.
He's way uglier in the book.
Like
He's lost his
missing a
nose.
nose.
He's disfigured.
Yeah.
Everything. So
Dinklage is like a
he has.
handsome devil.
Okay. So in the books, Tyrion is described as having both hair that's almost white and also black hair. He has 1 green eye and 1 black eye. There is precedence for that. Obviously, the almost white hair could be like a platinum silver hair, like a Targaryen. As far as the mismatched eyes, there's precedent. Shiera Seastar, which was a bastard daughter of Aegon IV, had 1 blue and 1 green eye. So even though she was a Targaryen bastard, she had a green eye, so why not Tyrion? I like that all the characteristics are possibly there, but A, I think it's a little too easy. B, I'm sick of secret Targaryens at this point. And C, as I've said before, I really loved, in a bad way, but loved the interactions between Tywin and Tyrion, and I think it's so much more poignant if they are actually real father and son, because for Tywin to just disavow his son, who is the most like him, Olenna says it, everyone keeps saying like Tyrion is Tywin's real son, he's the actual Lannister heir, and for Tywin to just discount him because he's not actually his son is just not as interesting to me. I don't want to give Tywin that much credit.
But then how can he touch the dragon?
Jon touched the dragon. Everyone can touch the freaking dragon.
Well,
did the dragons purr for Tyrion? No.
Well, because he's only half.
So is
So
Jon.
Jon
And
still has
Drogon
stars.
freaking lay down like a cat in a
Yeah, he was-
sunbeam. He's
Drogon
just-
was like,
Drogon
Yes.
was into it. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I'm on the fence about it because it makes so much narrative sense, but it almost makes too much narrative sense at this point, given the prophecies. And I also think, given the loss of one of the dragons, I think that what that is now going to be turned on its head. You know what I mean? Like what it means for the dragon to have 3 heads is now defunct in terms of. We clearly see that there are going to be 3 dragon riders, but one of them is going to be Bran, as we've just discussed, as the Night King, and or Bran warging into the dragon. One of those probably,
Maybe.
or both, some combination of all of it.
Yeah, I like what you bring up, though, Michelle, that it gets at something that I think the show is really good at, which is holding up this system of houses and families and lineage rule and poking holes in it and being like, you know what, just because his name is Lannister doesn't mean he's an asshole. Yeah. And then be like, just kidding, his name isn't Lannister. All Lannisters are assholes. He's a Targaryen. He's cool. So you're right. That would kind of undercut a cool part of the books for me.
But Jaime's not it.
He's part
Jaime's
asshole.
not total asshole.
Sure.
His redemptive arc is way farther along in the books than it is in the show, and I am waiting for that turn. It's got to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, at the same time, Jaime's done horrible things.
Oh, yeah.
But he is not purely evil by any stretch of the imagination. Most of them aren't. There's very few, a couple of the characters are, but that's about it. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't hate it if he is, but I don't need him to be either. Mm-hmm. Those are 6. More thoughts?
No, yeah, that's a good point.
All right, well, those are 6 of the... So not all of them are that outlandish.
No, but they got less crazy as we went along.
Yeah, they did.
I didn't even mean to order them that way, but it totally worked out. Cool.
Well, what's your favorite?
I mean, you see my favorite. My favorite is just the crazy time-traveling fetus one. But I think as far as, like, one that I would enjoy the most if it was true is the Bran is the Night King.
I have to agree. Bran as the Night King is the one that, for me... works within the
would
story.
somewhat redeem Bran.
It would, well...
As a character, not as a person.
Wait, it would redeem Bran?
Just character-wise. It would give him something to do other than... I like Faceless Missandei just because it would point to this like secret network of assassins who have infiltrated every court, and I just think that's cool.
And they've actually been driving it all along. Not
Just keeping
Littlefinger.
tabs, like they influence where they need to, but yeah.
All right. Well, there's a lot more fan theories than that, obviously. Those are just 6 of some of the more popular ones running around right now. Let us know in comments what your favorite fan theories are. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Which of these do you like the best or want to be true? You can also tweet at us. I'm at Roth Cornett.
At Michelle Boyd.
And at Spencer J. Gilbert.
And we will see you here on Monday for the finale.
Oh my gosh.
Let us know if there's anything else you'd like us to talk about after the finale. We can probably bang one
We
more
have like
out.
a year and a half
Yeah.
to
time.
figure
We can
out
talk
other
about other
videos.
stuff.
So yeah,
Let us know what
please.
you like to Game of Thrones it. Thrones it on. All right, that's it. Thanks for
Bye.
joining us.
Thanks again to T-Mobile for sponsoring today's episode. Check out what makes them America's best unlimited network at T-Mobile.com/coverage.